Good morning. Wakey, wakey. How's everybody? Third day? Pretty awesome, huh? Everybody twittering, hopefully? Okay, who's an author? Up go the hands. Who's writing something?
You make the distinction between who's an author and who's actually writing something?
I meant we're all authors, but are we actually writing something right now? Right, there's a distinction. So let's begin. It's 10 o'clock. I will be awake in about an hour. In the meantime, these two ladies will talk, and I will just sit here. No, actually, not true. Why don't we start off with introductions?
Hi, I'm Margarita. I write urban fantasy, of course, with the ubiquitous catchphrase, strong female lead, which I think we see a lot of everywhere. And I came to this panel because I wanted to talk about women in fiction and see if we can figure out a way to change that catchphrase so that it's just a female lead. We don't have to clarify strong female lead every time we put that out there.
Great point. Great point. There's a discussion out there on the internet about that, isn't there? Yeah. In fact, I think there's a blog out there, an excellent article. I forget who it is. I should have written it down. And the title was "Why I Hate Strong Female Characters," and it was written by a female. So what she hated was the designation, that needs to be the designation. There it is. My name is Nina Munteanu, and you may have seen me wandering around aimlessly. I've written a couple of books, most of them with main female protagonist. I teach writing at U of T and George Brown, and we cover this topic quite a bit. It's not a women's studies, but essentially it's looking at the role of main protagonists. And yes, I'd like to deconstruct that and move forward. There are a lot of women writers out there and a lot of men writers and I'd like to see that even playing field. But let's discuss it, and on to the next person.
Hi, I'm Sarah Katie, and I am a co-owner of a company called Atmist, and we do web development for research, education, and business. I'm working on a project right now called Write Often, which is basically helping aspiring writers improve their writing through writing prompts and feedback from the community. As for my writing, I tend to frequently blog on pretty much every subject out there, and I'm working on doing my first novel. And why did I choose this panel? I took a lot of gender courses in university, so I feel like I have lots to say on the topic.
Good. Well, you will be. Well, let's start off with what you said there about trying to get rid of the strong female lead. What's at the root of that?
Well, I think there's a couple of ideas that I have floating around in my head. Like you said, I have quite a lot of feelings on this. The first one that comes to mind is a quote, and I'm going to mangle it, but the person who said it was Meryl Streep, and she had been, somebody had been asking her about the strong females that she played, or strong-minded women that she played. And she had said something to the effect of, nobody mentions to the male leads that you're playing a strongly minded male character, and yet every time she seemed to take up a character, that had to be brought up in one of the interviews, that she was playing a strong female character, as though it was, a completely different and new idea. And the fact that it always needed to be qualified, and that was the qualifier we choose. The other thing I think about that is that what I've noticed, and this is just my own personal opinion, and I'm welcome to any sort of disagreement or debate about this, is that when I see strong female character, I see a lot of women who are getting stripped of traditionally female characteristics and are having male characteristics. We're losing the softness. We're losing the more feminine qualities, and our strong female characters, to me, seem to be quite, I don't know what the female equivalent of the word emasculated is, but they're defeminized. They've been taken down, and somehow it seems that you can't have a strong female character that's loving, that's kind, that cares, that wants to take care of other people, that doesn't want to get into conflict and is more interested in a dialogue rather than, going in guns blazing. And I've done it myself in my own writing, and it wasn't something that I realized until I started really looking at it. So it's definitely something that I see in myself, I see in the works around me, and now that I'm more aware of it, I'm really looking into, okay, so if I don't like that, what am I going to do about it, and how can I, start to be the change I want to see in the world?
That's beautiful. Can you describe one of your books and describe one of your heroines?
So my lead character, Jade, I do see her as an emotionally damaged woman. And I've been setting up in books 1 and 2, I think I hopefully I've been showing that she's emotionally damaged. But one of the things I worked really hard at was I never compared her to other women. I never wanted to write the phrase, she's not like other women. She wasn't going to be like other women. She wasn't going to cry like other women. She wasn't going to do X, So I did try to keep in the things that I consider to be maybe a bit more feminine that some people might have cut out of her. She wants to look pretty when she goes to work. She doesn't see anything wrong with that. When she goes to the big ball, she wants to wear a pretty dress. She wants to look nice. She wants to be covered up. She doesn't want to be, somebody says, if you've got it, flaunt it. And she says, I don't want to flaunt it. I just want it to look nice. She cries when somebody yells at her in front of a group of people, because I think that that's something that happens. I definitely have been overwhelmed by emotion before. She's definitely trying to figure out her emotions, and in book 3 I'm hoping to explore there's a very strong female relationship in her life that I've been alluding to throughout books 1 and 2 to a character called Lily, and I'm really hoping to explore that better in book 3, whereas I see them both as strong, if I have to use that word. I see Jade as the weightlifter, and I see Lily more as yoga. Very different types of strength, but they are both equally important, and they both have value and depth.
Cool. What about your story and your character?
Well, I'll just speak on the subject, I guess. I completely agree that it's kind of like an anomaly. It's when you say you have a strong female character, it's almost like the rest of females are considered weak and uninteresting, and their stories aren't worth telling. And in addition to that, even the strong female characters who are shown in shows, a lot of times they're strong until the movie starts, and then they need rescuing from the hero. A couple examples come to mind, like the Lego movie, Wild Style. Like, she was like this really strong, kick-ass character, and as soon as she got started in the movie, she was always saved by the bumbling hero, Emmett. Yeah. And then even at the end, when she decided to date him, which is him basically winning the woman for achieving his quest, she got permission from Batman to go date him. So I think that's a problem that's really being shown in our strong female characters, is we're labeling them as strong, but the change hasn't really occurred. It's just repackaging and relabeling the same problems and kind of disguising them.
Oh my gosh, if that had a like button, I would be pressing that.
Yeah, there are a couple of other examples like that. There's, is it Dragon Slayer, the second movie, or the third movie? How many movies are there? Dragon Slayer. And there was a strong female protagonist there. Mm-hmm. But again, she played subservient to, the Dragon Slayer, the boy. Mm-hmm. Lord of the Rings. Is it Lord of the Rings? What am I thinking of? Not Lord of the Rings. The previous. The Hobbit? Someone help me. Yeah, The Hobbit. The Hobbit.
The latest. Women in that, Toriel was inserted by Peter Jackson, was she not?
Is she the one with the runs around and?
Yeah,
she's the warrior.
The red-haired elf is the one that was inserted because there weren't a lot of women in the film. Actually,
so she was added in, but that was obvious she was added in, and she was kick-ass, but then up to a certain point, and that was it. And we use that word kick-ass, and it doesn't really need to be that way.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
The point is, I think what we're getting at here with this discussion is that there's a term for it. It's called the Trinity Syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When the woman is essentially there to enable the man.
And we have a lot of this
the
happening
male character.
with the Trinity syndrome. We also have the fridging syndrome. Have you heard of that? Where they kill
No.
off the female to further the male lead development storyline. So you have a female character, and then she gets fridged, she gets killed, so that propels our protagonist further into the hero. So
I haven't heard that.
Her death is only there to serve his storyline.
Right.
Yeah, the same thing.
Yeah.
Trinity, because I read about that she comes in at the beginning of The Matrix. What an introduction. You know, she's active, she's dynamic, she's fighting. It's so intriguing. I mean, the visuals of that movie, if somebody once said you only get to see The Matrix for the first time once. So interesting. And then somehow once we get Neo involved, she really does step back, and it only becomes about furthering his journey.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's his hero's journey, and we don't have a lot of stories when there's a male character, a male main protagonist, where the woman is equal to him in terms of being like it's a co-evolution. They're each on a journey. And usually the woman steps aside, and it's almost like that's the role that the woman plays, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. It's just that it's nice. It would be nice to see something a little different.
Equal balance.
Yeah. So there's Trinity and Neo. There's give me some other examples.
I can't think of any other super strong female characters though that were pulled aside. Like I think that most of the
a lot of
media
them
that I'm used to consuming tends to have male leads. And
Yeah.
when I was younger, I never understood. I have to say, when I was younger, I was almost blind to gender. When I was younger, I wanted to be James Bond. And I didn't understand. Somebody once said to me, well, you can't be James Bond, you're a girl. And that was actually confusing
could
to
be
me.
Jane Bond.
Jane Bond. I didn't understand that because the fact that I'm a little bit squeamish and a little bit hesitant and not very brave is more of a hindrance to me being James Bond than my gender. You know, my personality might be a hindrance to me being James Bond, but it wasn't about gender. I wanted to be Batman. I never wanted to be the female sidekick. I always wanted to be the lead hero, and I never really realized anything was wrong with that or anything was weird about that until people started pointing out, well, you can't do that because you're female. And it's like, I really think it's more of a problem that I'm a squeamish person that doesn't like to leave the house than my gender being an issue. And when I look back and when I think about female role models, I'm not sure that I had very many. But I didn't realize that at the time. And I was lucky that it didn't stop me from taking on these male role models without losing myself, I guess.
Yeah, and really what you're pinpointing is it's not it's a male female thing. It's that particular model you were going for.
I was drawn to.
Yeah.
And I didn't notice the gender until it was pointed out to me.
Right-o. We have a question.
You just said earlier on that you wanted to see more feminization of people. And like you just said, you wanted to be that kick-ass superhero.
Yeah.
So it's real balance.
I don't see, though, that...
It's an oxymoron is what it is.
But I don't see why it has to be. I don't
But then
can't be kick-ass.
you might want to be James Bond too, and you may not have the... There you go. Well, there you go. Okay. And you may not have the abilities or the tendency otherwise, but you fantasize that is where you can be. And that's really what it is. And that's, in some ways, that's what storytelling is all about. That's where the hero comes in. We look at the hero and we empathize with the hero in some way. Not that we're going to be that hero, right? But that's what story is allowing us to do. So really, does it matter what gender it is? And this is I think what we're running across is that, and you may be weird. Whereas women seem to have no problem. And again, I'm generalizing, so hit me. But women seem to have less of a problem, and it may be because of the prevalence of this, empathizing with a male main protagonist. Whereas men seem to have a bit more of an issue. I know my husband did. I mean, he, what was it, Gorillas in the Mist with, what's her name? Sigourney Weaver. Oh my God, he just hated her because she was such a strong character. And I thought, whoa.
Real person. Yeah.
Because she was a woman. I think it would have been totally different if she was a male character for him. So there's this gender sort of inequality in terms of what we expect from a gender. And I think that's sort of what we're fighting against here in terms of story, science fiction, fantasy, whatever. Science fiction less so. I think there are a lot of strong female protagonists in science fiction, less so in fantasy. Again, in fantasy, they tend to do that drop back thing for the main dude is going to go do the rescuing.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. We kind of associate females to being the weaker sex, and so males feel like it's not cool or not appropriate to sympathize and to identify with female characters. And a great example of this is initially when Harry Potter was first published, they only produced 500 copies. They thought that boys wouldn't want to read about a boy story that was written by a woman. And so I think this just points to the issue that there's so much stigma attached with being a female and trying to tell female stories. And I think the other
Isn't that why it was J.K. Rowling as opposed to...
Yeah, it's also why she...
That's why a lot of authors go with their initials
Yeah.
instead. Yeah.
We have a lot of men in here. I'd like to hear from you guys on what we just said, because that was almost inflammatory, what we were saying. So I'd like to hear your take on it. Because, I mean, I am talking about my experience with my husband, but he's just one man. What do you have to say?
I have a 5-novel series that I started over 10 years ago that have been published over a number of years. And I really wanted to make a strong female character. And I think the women don't relate to it that well because she's probably way over what a woman would actually do. I mean, I wanted to write a woman that would terrify me. And she does. I mean,
Maybe they terrify the women, too.
And the men don't seem to appreciate it because they don't want this woman doing things belittling the men. So, I mean, it's hard, I think, to do that in fiction because I like most of it. I mean, I don't, if I can get 20 sales a year, I'm lucky.
Do you think it's because it's so different from what's out there? Like you're considered maybe like an outlying data point now, but maybe if the trend starts to swing more that way, I mean, maybe you're just, what's the word I'm looking for, a pioneer.
Ahead of your time.
Yeah, ahead of your time.
Yeah, well, I'm sure I'll be famous when I'm
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Other...
From a writing context point of view, the reason I think I'm here is to have some better understanding of how females should be portrayed so that they're more credible to that target audience, okay? So from a writer's point of view, when you're talking about, for instance, The Matrix, I had never seen the movie back then. I must be an outlier of some sort after a long time. I had the impression that was written for primary target, young females. And so when you're expressing some concern or surprise or whatever it might be, I do have a recollection of being a young male. Let's allow that. And I can't imagine being you know what, you've got limited thoughts in your head. And they're sure, their aggression, they're beating up the other guys, they're winning, they're getting the bait, right? And so when they're writing that, which is why I think we're here as writers, to figure out what we want to write. Maybe you do have a social agenda, I don't know, I don't. But you're writing for that target audience, you're going to say, this is what a young male audience wants, and then you have to figure out, am I so distorting things and complying with, like I would sell out. I don't have a lot of pride, and I would just say, what sells to that target audience, and they did that. I don't know that I'd be critical. There is a good movie, I remember Run, Lola, Run. I don't know how many people are familiar with it. 1980s movie.
That's
Great movie.
Franca Potente, I think it is. Yeah.
You know what? The female protagonist, her boyfriend, she saved his bacon. He was a wimp, but she wasn't aggressive. She was just determined.
Right.
I think my problem is that most movies are written for that slice of young males, and then all they're consuming are movies written for them, so all they see is that slice, and then we're just perpetuating the same.
I understand that. I think it's a tough thing if you want to write for young males and think you can change the hormones that are running through three females. They don't have any idea how bad it is and what's going through that kid's mind.
But we have our own hormones as well, and our own issues with our hormones.
Yeah, those are different issues. Okay?
And that's what I want to see more of, though.
But all I'm saying is, if you're writing for that, it's no big surprise you're going to have a certain fantasy, and you know what? Maybe by everybody writing something very sensitive, you're going to change the course of those males' hormones. Good luck.
Excellent. Well, it isn't just for them either. That's the whole point. It's not limited to that. We have a couple more comments. You had your hand up for quite a while.
I was wondering if you guys could talk about how it's somewhat unfortunate that we keep referring to the term as strong female characters, when really what we're looking for is well-developed and resourceful female characters.
Yeah.
I think, there's a meme that goes around on Tumblr, and it specifically says, screw writing strong female characters, write interesting female characters, write, whiny female characters, write happy female characters. Just keep writing female characters. And I think we keep using, it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, we keep using that term strong to imply that all the other material you read up until this point
is weak.
Showcased a poorly developed or a weak female character, and now I'm going to show you a different female character, but it's getting very pigeonholed. And it's getting very, I find that if you don't have your character in with certain characteristics and certain traits, then she doesn't get classified as strong. But I just want to read about more female heroines, and it's also tough to be a smart writer. It's tough to have your heroine make smart choices, make well-developed choices. And I think that's true but it's true in any writing. It's always tough to have your hero make smart choices, hero or heroine. Sometimes you do want to put them in jeopardy, but if they're smart, they shouldn't end up in jeopardy too often. They shouldn't just play into the bad guy's hands. And it is difficult. I find it very difficult to put my heroine in jeopardy in such a way that she didn't place herself there just for the purpose of the plot, because I'm trying to make her smart. So when somebody tells her, I'm telling you that, she's a new witch, she just has her new powers, and somebody says to her, you don't have the power yet to deal with this, it was very hard for me to realize that as a smart person, she would say, yeah, you're right. I don't have the power to deal with this. I'm not going to go charge in there half-cocked just because it serves the story. My sister and I always joke in the movies when somebody says to the character, you wait in the car. We'd be saying, damn right I'm waiting in the car. I'm not going to go in there, But then how do you place your character in jeopardy without having her make those bad decisions? And it is tougher.
Yeah, I guess at the root of it is we are different and also the same. So we have a good mix here of men and women who are writing about the other sex as well as their own sex. And there are differences and there are similarities. Both can be heroes, both can be enabling, whatever it is. And what we want to do ultimately, as you were saying, is we want to represent that character, whether it's female or male, realistically, so that they're understandable, that they are realistic, and people buy into them of both sexes. That's a difficult thing to do, which is why, in fact, let's face it, most men have a man as a main protagonist, and most women write as a woman as a main protagonist. I do the same thing. That's not to say I don't have men in there, Obviously, we all have men and women in there. We've got to. But that's a conundrum because we are different and we do see heroism differently. Women heroes, per se, in real life are different than men heroes in real life. And that's a good way to look at it. If we look at real life heroes, just on the top of your head, if you can think of people that are heroic, that have done great works in either sex, there tends to be a bit of a difference. Women will perhaps look more for a cooperative way to achieve something. Women will, it's like the woman sitting in the car, right? She's the one who's going to go and ask someone for directions, and the male is the one, let's face it, my husband did that. He's not going to ask for directions. He's going to figure his way through, right? That's the guy thing to do. It's stereotypic, but stereotypes are there based on reality, based on who and what we actually are. That's how stereotypes develop. In this book, Darwin's Paradox, the main character is a woman, and she is, in fact, a loner. She is a computer geek. She does all those kind of things, and she, in some ways, that might be more male-like, but her big thing is she's got to find a community to help her get what she needs to get done, and that's the hardest thing for her to do. So she's got to find the weirdest people, the most unlikely allies to help her, and that's a very different trope than the diehard type guy that's going to.
She definitely can't
the
do
one.
that by brute force.
Yeah, by brute force. So it's cooperative, right? It's a cooperative approach. It's very, very different. It's in fact. Let's take out the gender. Let's say it's actually Canadian versus American. Who's American here? Is everyone Canadian? There you go. I mean, there isn't just differences between genders in terms of heroism, in terms of how story plays out, in terms of who does what. There is differences in culture, and this is all part of a cultural thing. We are more about cooperation. We do things a little bit differently. So that gets put into the whole thing as well. More
There were
comments?
More hands that were still up.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I wanted to speak to a couple of things, including one of the previous comments. The idea that the young boys, like they're sharpening of their hormones, they're fighting with each other, and then they're and I wonder how much that ties into a lot of the things we've been talking about. The girl being an object, not a real human being character in her own right, just plays into a lot of these tropes. And if this is what people are writing, is it any wonder that women are actually identifying and empathizing with the actually fleshed out characters? Because the women in the stories are placeholders, they're objects, they're not characters.
You could replace her with like a trophy or a crown, and people might not even notice. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm an educator. I'm coming from a different perspective than a lot of the writers, and I look at some of these things that are happening in our culture, and forgive me for mentioning this, I studied sexual assault litigation in the ages that a lot of you guys are writing in your audiences. And some of the things that I'm seeing over and over and over again, and are supported by some of these ideas of the woman as the trophy role, this is what our boys are acting out in real life. And we know from our studies, like our psychological studies, that this is what is creating these sorts of cultural norms around non-consent and getting the trophy and dehumanizing.
Yeah, because you don't care if an object gives consent. When you view women as objects, it doesn't matter if the object gives consent or not.
And we know that there's and again, please forgive me for saying this, it's a little blunt. There's a window in the late teens that the men that are rapists, and it is overwhelmingly the men, like 95%, they start raping in their late teens. And 2/3 of them will go on to rape at least 5, 6, or 11 other people. So I know that a lot of you have been
that, oh, I don't really want to care about these social justice things, but this is part of our culture, and if you're not going to be writing not the strong female character, but the real female character, it's only going to perpetuate this. And so your writing does have a wider effect on the world. It's not just escapism and fun and fantasy. It's modeling to our developing people. It's modeling our values as a society on what we think about men. What's the monster? What's the story? Where things are going? And so maybe it really ought to be thinking about these things.
Yeah,
Well, I
I
think-
completely agree with that. I have to say that, like, we often try to take the easy way out. We say that social norm is a social norm, and therefore it is what it is, and we shouldn't change it. But I have a good example of this. I think it was like in the 1950s. It used to be that pink was considered more masculine and strong, and that blue was considered more dainty and feminine. So social constructs and social norms can change all the time. So saying that we shouldn't be writing about these things, yeah, it might not be quite as popular, but if we start portraying people in more real and humanizing ways, that's how we'll start seeing the changes that we want.
Yeah, I'm just going to add to that. Really what it comes down to is how you portray all your characters. So you have your main character. If you're, many times it's a male or a female, it doesn't really matter. But then you'll have your minor characters. And in many cases what we do as writers, beginning writers, and I teach writing, so I see this time and again, is that you fail on the minor character. All the minor characters, whether they're female or male, will be portrayed as whatever they are, their symbol. So if you take the time to portray each character is there in the story for a reason. They are there to service the plot, the theme, whatever the story is about. Is it about forgiveness? Is it about atonement? Something is going on there that is important for the main protagonist. Then all the other characters serve that as well. Now they can be portrayed as cardboard symbols, or they themselves have their journey to portray. And I think in many cases that's what's failing. And it isn't so. In science fiction, I'm hoping that it's moving forward in terms of who is portrayed as what. But if all the characters have an important journey themselves to convey, then you have less of that cardboard portrayal. So paying attention to your minor characters is an important part. We have 2 questions.
I wanted to ask a question more in relation to audience for strong and developed female characters. Gail Simone, who's a large voice in the comic world, recently went on a wonderful Twitter rant about how it's insulting to men that there are so few female leads because it's implying that men can't identify with the journeys that women go through, and that there is something inhibiting them from doing so, and there's that definition perpetuated down through marketing and whatnot. And I was wondering if you could comment on that, about who strong and well-developed female characters are actually for.
I think they're for everybody. I was really happy when my 13-year-old nephew read my book and told me he liked it. I was, because my sister said, I'm giving it to Ryan for him to read. I thought, I don't know if he's going to like it. My first thought was, I don't know if he'll like it because it's got a girl lead, and then you realize, okay, I'm part of the problem. I've got to change my mindset. And when he came to me, he's like, I really liked your book. It was really fun. I was really happy. And I don't think it occurred to him that it was a female lead. I hope it didn't.
That's the thing. You can have a female lead. You can also have, it goes back to what I just said about the minor characters. In many cases, when you have a female lead, you have a wimpy, who mentioned that? You have a wimpy milquetoast male character. Why does he have to be wimpy milquetoast for the woman to be strong in comparison? They can both be strong. Why not? Why not have a team sort of teamship? Am I saying that right? Thank you. Partnership. A team, a respectful team, an equality happening, as opposed to bashing or lowering the male in order to elevate the female. And why? And if I was a guy, I wouldn't like that. What the heck? I want to read good characters, period. Good characters all around, whether they're male or female. I want to see them both interacting, conflicting, and everything. I want to see both strong male and strong female characters. Why, bug one? So if yours did really well with your nephew, I bet you had strong male characters in there.
I try to make, try to make them both equally strong.
You don't try, you do. You're not even trying. You're not. This is the other thing. You're not thinking about it. You don't think about the social event, it being a social comment. You're writing a story. You're writing a story about characters. That takes precedence over everything. So I think it really comes down to writing the best characters you can, whether they're female or male, and not at the expense of the other.
But you're definitely right. I think I'm going to go check out the Gail Simone's Twitter, because sexism hurts both sexes. It places extraordinary pressure on both genders to behave in a certain way, and I think it's damaging. It's damaging to men and it's damaging to women. I see a question in the back.
Maybe more so just I think that it's a disservice to assume that, male readers don't want to read a strong or just female lead, and I think it's also, it's like looking at the writing tattoo, and then it's also probably at this point in time a missed opportunity for authors not to start writing more like female leads, because Thor is a woman, and then the Ghostbusters, they're supposed to be women.
Now, is that true? Because I heard that rumor as well. So are they doing an all-female? Because I have been waiting for an all-female Ghostbusters, and the only reason I'm disappointed is because I personally wanted to play Peter Venkman, and surely that's not going to happen now if they're going ahead with it. I assume they'll find someone else. But I'm really excited about an all-female Ghostbusters, and I'm excited because I'm tired of always seeing, and this maybe ties into it or doesn't tie into it, I'm tired of always seeing a romance in my films with a strong female lead. When I watched Pacific Rim with my nephews, it starts off, and for those of you who've seen it, Raleigh loses his brother, and he's not sure if he can ever get in the Jaeger again. And then when he finally does, end up getting called back to get into the Jaeger, we meet Mako Morai. And my nephew turned to me and said, "Is this the one that he's supposed to fall in love with now in this movie?" And I was like, "Oh, buddy, I'm so excited, because that doesn't happen in this movie." But he was immediately, you could just see it on his face. Is this going to turn into a romance? As soon as he saw that female character opposite his male lead, he assumed that was the road it was going. And so I was really excited to see that character and not have it be a romance. I'm really excited for the Ghostbusters. I don't think it was. I don't think it ended up. I didn't see them. Oh, did it?
Yeah. There was like.
Oh, I guess it was just her. Yeah, just Mako. I didn't see them. I guess because I didn't get that kiss at the end, I assumed it was just a strong friendship. I thought they just touched foreheads. Did they kiss? I saw it as a strong friendship. I didn't see it as a romance.
Foreheads, but it was certainly.
So maybe that was just my interpretation. I saw it as just a really. Closed door. It happened after the lights went down. But I was really excited to see that connection between a male and a female character that didn't necessarily lead towards a romance. So yeah, and I was very excited to be able to tell him that was not going to distract from the plot of Kaiju versus Jaeger as well.
Wasn't the latest James Bond movie, or the second latest, had the Bond girl did not form an attachment, or they didn't have.
Of Solace,
I think so.
I don't think they ended up being together. I think he ended up being with other women.
Yeah.
The show.
Yeah. So that was again like, well, he had to do that.
Yeah. Usually he does sort of make the rounds. Yeah.
Yeah. Usually the Bond girl is the one. That was a different Bond.
Moneypenny ended up being a former agent herself in the third one, I think.
Oh, is that right?
She was the one. It was her job actually. She had to shoot Bond because she had the shot. and she was told that.
Oh, I remember that one. That was cool.
And
that
I was
cool.
really happy to see
Yeah.
Moneypenny somewhere other than behind the desk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was neat. That was neat.
And then she ended up behind the desk. And then they killed Judi Dench. I was like, sorry, spoiler alert.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
And
Yeah.
I was like, you were
Okay.
doing so well.
Oh, any other questions? We have one in the back.
In real life, women are becoming more and more empowered, but I'm finding in real life that comes with a certain level of disrespect. So even though you get the great thing you want to go, you're a bitch or whatever, like this kind of disrespect to somebody that you're achieving. And I like to read female characters, but I like to read a female character where I can respect them, because they've got a challenge like a guy likes a challenge. How they solve it from the female point of view, which has a broad spectrum. I want to respect them for that. And
Well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to respect any character, female or male?
I think like physically, it's respect the way they handle male, female. And as writers, you can write about guys and how they conquer the issue. And I don't necessarily respect that either. Male writers write male things over history, and guys wind up with this preconceived notion of what a guy is. And you also have a preconceived notion of what a woman is. Hey, great opportunity.
Great opportunity to subvert that. Definitely. We actually have, as writers, all of us here in this room, have a great opportunity to subvert all those preconceived notions that we've just discussed. And
I noticed that most of the examples here are not writing, they're moving. We don't only have to fight the trouble with writing, we have to educate the bloody movie makers.
very, very
well,
good
I think
point.
it's just the media industry in general, whether you're talking about books, movies, TV, commercials, music, we see it across a number of platforms. As far as strong females in books, if we go back to that strong female, my favorite female character has always been Jane Eyre. And a lot of people are surprised because it's a historical book and she is facing a lot of gendered issues because she can only become a governess. But there are so many, when in doubt, what would Jane Eyre do? There are so many times that, she faces Rochester and as an equal. How dare you treat me as anything less than an equal? And there it's more about their social stature, but, how dare you treat me as anything less than an equal when I have full as much heart as you? And, and then when she finds out about Bertha Mason up in the attic, and he's like, I still want to be with you. And she's like, absolutely not. This is not what I'm comfortable with, and I must respect myself. And I must leave you now. And when I think about a female character that I want to emulate, I always think about Jane Eyre, and I always wonder how we haven't moved on yet when we had a fantastic example so early.
Haven't we moved on?
I hope that. I don't always see it going.
Yeah, I think there's always this yin and yang that happens. I think we have periods of progress and then we have periods of backlash that fight it. One of the periods of backlash right now is the F word. Being seen as a feminist is actually being seen as a bad thing. And really, all a feminist wants is to be equal. They want to be equal to men. But yet we're seeing movements where people want to take traditional roles in the homes and the households, which isn't a bad thing. They should have the option to do that. But to say that you as a feminist and you as someone who wants to achieve equality in the workplace and in the status of the community and the status of movies and literature, I think that's a real problem right now. I think people should be educated on the problems that are happening in society, and they should actually be proud to call themselves feminists. Yeah.
You had a hand up, and then I think the lady behind you had a hand up for a while, and Sandra had her hand up too for a while.
I have the notion that now women are empowered. I just need to say that there's an underlying context there that someone has to allow them power. And I also reject that idea. I think, like I'm yelling already, we're trying to
The part that somebody had to allow a woman to be empowered, had
But
to let it
after.
happen.
Determine with her now empowered, I reject that.
You reject it.
It has an underlying context that someone has to allow them power.
We always had the power, and we didn't have to be allowed our rights.
I think it's just.
I actually agree with that, though, and I think that's a cool thing. I like to see that men are allowing that as we are allowing it. We are all allowing it. I mean, by using that word "allow," it's a giving. It's a giving, not a giving in. It is a giving in. It's a yielding, and it's going toward a partnership. Way of thinking. It's a respectful thing. It doesn't have to be the other one. It can be, you know what I'm saying? It can be one where it is, I don't know how to say it quite, but no, not giving permission, but saying I recognize. Yeah, I am humbling myself a little bit. We can all humble ourselves. And I think that's awesome if that's what's happening. It'd be nice to see that. Because that to me, that's also part of the whole, I can't talk this morning, I need my coffee, reaction to feminism, the violence of feminism, or the hostility of the perceived hostility of feminism, which most of it is not, but it's a defensive position, and that's where that word "allow" comes in. That's where that all has to go away, and we want to be partners in life. We want to be partners in story, and this is where. That's the whole thing about this. We're all here, sitting here. We're all writing something. We're writing stories. The stories are we're shamans here. We're writing the myths of our culture right now in terms of who we portray and how we portray people, and to portray them in partnership where they're equal is really the cool place that we're going, and I think we are going there. And I think, that you've got a strong female protagonist. You're calling her that. Okay. You're enabling her in a world that you've created. Let's keep doing that.
Yeah.
Let's keep doing that.
We only have a couple minutes left, so should we end with maybe saying a couple of things that people can do to represent real women and stuff like that? Okay, I'll start. So I think one of the things we need to see is complex real characters, to try to have equal gender balances in books, in films, in how people are presented. There's something called Madonna and the Whore. Women are generally represented in one of two ways. They're either saintly and virginal, or they're kind of a slut. I think we need to show more complexity, show more intricities between those two areas, to not only sexualize them, to show them for having differences of opinion, having other interests, having other value to society. And one good book to read is called The Virgin's Promise. It shows both the masculine and feminine kind of journeys. One is to self-actualization, and the other is to actually to kind of go on a quest. So it's kind of like an updated version of the hero's journey.
Perfect.
Nice.
Perfect.
It's called The Virgin's Promise. Yeah.
Another book that I would recommend is The Chalice and the Blade by Riane Eisler. Excellent book on partnership. Galenic versus androcratic partnership structure for society that essentially is a partnership of equal genders in terms of story as well.
One of the things that I would like to see more in my fiction, and of course you could always take this however you want as a writer, but I like my female lead to have more females in her life. So I quite often see a female lead, which is great, and then she's surrounded by men, and she doesn't have a best friend, and she doesn't have a sister, and she doesn't talk to her mother, and she never seems to interact with any other women. So we sort of got halfway there with a strong female protagonist, and then we don't see any other women around her. Like you said, it's showing up in the secondary characters, the minor characters. That there's nobody else around her that's female.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for your opinions. Thank you for listening.